Most applications perform calculations of some kind. They add, multiply, and divide numbers. And C++ has the operators you'd expect to do that. Hopefully no one's really surprised to see this list. But one of the interesting things about C++, and this goes back to its C heritage, is that it has operators that other languages may or may not have, and the reason that they are in C++ is because they are a single instruction on some of the chips the language was designed to run on. The plus equals and minus equals operators are actually quicker, in the absence of an optimizer, of course, than the long way. X plus equals 2 and x is equal to x plus 2 are the same in terms of the answer you get, but in a time before optimizers, x plus equals 2 could actually be quicker. These days, the issue isn't about the performance, but it is about readability and about typo prevention. If your variable's not called x, it's called number of units that I need to ship, then being able to write plus equals amount in new order is shorter line of text and less chance to make mistakes than if you have to repeat that really long variable name a couple of times. If you want to add just one or take away just one, there is also the increment operator. And there are two variants of each of the increment and decrement, and they're known as prefix and postfix, depending on whether the symbol comes before or after the variable that you're incrementing or decrementing. The difference between them has to do with what this operator returns. You know, all operators have a return value, so 2 plus 3 returns 5. In C++, even the equals operator has a return value. If I write x equals 2, that expression actually returns the value 2. I++ returns the old value of I and then increments it, whereas ++I increments I and then returns the new value. And the same for the decrement. I minus minus returns the old value of I and then decrements it. Minus minus I decrements I and then returns the new smaller value. Why would anybody care about this distinction or even want this operator? I'll show you that when we get to the demo. The percent symbol is the modulo operator. That's your remainder after you divide things. So in this example here, 17 divided by 2 is 8 remainder 1. And the modulo, 17 mod 2, is 1, that remainder that's left over after you divide. Quite often you'll see people testing modulos against 0 as a quick way of showing whether or not something is a multiple of the smaller number. The one operator that seems to be missing is the exponent operator, x to the power of y. You can't invent your own. You have to settle for using the pow function, which is in math.h. One of the reasons you can't invent your own has to do with the order of operations. C++ knows the rules that you probably learned in grade school about order of operations. So if somebody writes 3 times 2 plus 1, you're supposed to do 3 times 2 first and then add 1 to the result. I don't recommend learning them. I recommend you use round brackets to gather things up, because even if you learn them all, does a person who's going to read your code know them all? It's often a good idea to express your intent really clearly with brackets. I tell people brackets are free, and they really make sure that everybody understands the order of operations for these calculations that you're doing.